NBC Sports will present 3 games on this upcoming NFL Super Wildcard weekend, including the NFL's first ever exclusively live stream playoff game. That'll be Saturday night on Peacock at 8 Eastern. It's the Kansas City Chiefs hosting Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins. Jason Garrett will be the game analyst Saturday night with the Dolphins and the Chiefs, and he'll be working with Mike Tirico and Kaylee Hartung. And the former Cowboys coach joins us on the program. How do you prepare your team for cold weather if you're Mike McDaniels going into Kansas City and they're talking about being one of the coldest games in NFL playoff history?
Hey, Happy New Year, Dan.
Happy New Year, Coach.
It's a real challenge for anybody. And the one thing I'd like to add, though, is it's a challenge for Kansas City, too. You know, they played in some of these games for a lot of years, but they're going to be impacted by how cold it is and handling the football and all of that. You know, Miami has had games in New York and Buffalo and New England, so they've had to deal with it a little bit. But this seems a little extreme. I don't know there's anything you really can do in practice to simulate it when you're down there in South Florida. I mean, what do you do? You know, I do think you want to talk about, you know, how you want the players to dress, the gloves, the sleeves, all those kinds of things. You know, really get with your equipment staff and talk those things through. And if you have to mandate some things. But it's a challenge. It'll be a challenge for both sides.
But do you coach differently in weather like this? Game plan different?
I don't think there's any doubt the weather's going to impact the game on both sides. And, you know, for the Dolphins, you know, you could argue that they're going to be impacted more, not only because they're from Miami, but their style of play is so high flying, right? They're such a fast team. It's the Santa Monica Track Club. Every time the ball is snapped, they got so many different guys that can attack you. And there's no doubt that when it's 0 degrees and you're playing on that grass and the wind's blowing, that slows you down. You know, the tough physical teams that can run the ball, it plays more to their favor. Now, Kansas City on the other side, they've been a high-flying outfit for a long time, less so this year. They've evolved a little bit as a team. They've become a more physical team, so maybe it works to their advantage, but both teams are going to be impacted.
What's it like when your quarterback maybe doesn't have the same kind of confidence in every receiver? Like, let's say Patrick Mahomes, he knows Kelsey, but these other receivers drop the ball. Is that conscious, subconscious when you're calling plays or getting ready to throw to a receiver?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that it is, especially with where they've been. You know, this is the record-setting offense of the last 4 or 5 years, and they've been to heights that no other offenses have been to for a long time. And now they seem a lot more pedestrian, a lot more normal. And I do think that what you're talking about is real. You know, time and time again, when you go to a guy and you don't get the result you want, and not only are they not making the big spectacular plays that we're so used to seeing them make, they're not making the ordinary plays. And, you know, there's a great story about Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan from years ago when Phil Jackson first got there and Jordan was already just a star, as you know. And, you know, Phil kind of brought him into the office and said, you got to throw the ball to these different guys. You got to throw it to these guys that, you know, it can't just be you every time. And he was like, well, that guy drops the ball and good things don't happen when I throw it to him. And Phil seemed to convince him to say, I got that. But the more you give them chances, the more confident they're going to be. And I think that's the case. That's a good lesson for quarterbacks. You know, when you're dealing with young guys who haven't had that much success, you have to keep trying to instill confidence in them and belief in them. And maybe you have to overlook some of the drops because over time you're going to need them. And I think Rashee Rice is a great example for their team, the growth and development of this guy over the course of the year. He's a real force now. And I think Patrick has to be willing to do that with some of the other guys to have them continue to grow, even at this late date, if they want to make a run in the playoffs.
I'm going to make you owner of the Patriots. What do you do?
You know, I have such immense respect for Coach Belichick and what he's done. I think you have a conversation with him and say, okay, here's where we are. These are my concerns. is there a way that we can restructure this thing and keep you as the coach? And so I would start there. Okay. Instead of saying, hey, it's all on you to make every decision in the organization, can we structure it in a way where, we bring a general manager back in there, maybe some you're familiar with, and let's keep going down the road. We're going to have to make some hard decisions on staff and on players, but let's keep this thing going. Short of that, if you're not satisfied with what that answer is, I think it's time to move on, and I think both guys would embrace a fresh start.
You're the owner of the Bears.
This is a hard one for me because Matt Eberflus worked for us in Dallas for a long time, and he's a dear friend, and I think, what he's done for the last part of this year should be encouraging to Bears fans, particularly with Justin Fields, how he's played. Having said that, you have to pull back and say, okay, do we have an opportunity to go get someone who we think can be really impactful and difference-making? The obvious one would be Jim Harbaugh. Are we comfortable with a guy like that? And then the other decision is, what do we do with the quarterback? Justin Fields has really improved. I think he's shown a lot of people how good a player he can be, but are these two guys coming out in the draft difference-making generational players? So I think you have two really workable options, promising as a head coach and promising as a quarterback. But then, do we want to go get the big fish, so to speak? So those are the discussions.
Jason Garrett, Football Night in America studio analyst. He'll be on the call with Mike Tirico, Kaylee Hartung. That'll be Saturday night, streaming on Peacock, the Chiefs and the Dolphins. Yeah, just trying to understand what's going on now with the coaching situation. Now Mike Vrabel just became available. Why is Mike Vrabel out of a job, in your opinion?
Hard for me to know about the inner workings of the organization. I'm such a Vrabel fan. They did such a good job there. But from the start of maybe the middle of last year through the end of this season, they were a different team. And I think the record shows that they had been a team that was so hard to beat. And then they became a team that was a lot easier to beat. And, as the head coach, you have to own that. Clearly, there was a difference in personnel. The A.J. Brown trade was certainly something I think everyone points to as highlighting maybe a difference in philosophy between the coaching staff and the personnel department. But it seems like since the middle of last year, they've been different. And, what discussions they had, yesterday and leading up to yesterday, who knows? Does he want to be there? Does he want to go to New England as the next head coach there? I mean, maybe those kinds of things came up. He's certainly a really good coach and won't be out of work long.
What would be your concern or concerns for the Cowboys hosting the Packers this weekend?
Just that they don't play the way they're capable of playing. They're a really good team. And, a lot of people have said, hey, they've beaten teams with less than 500 record, all of that. Well, you only can play the teams that are on your schedule. And in most of those games, except for Arizona, they dominated them. And they had a rough one against San Francisco early. They had a rough one against Philly. The Miami thing, the Buffalo thing, those are the ones where you say, hey, against the better teams, how did they do? But at the end of it, they won 12 out of 17. And they're really good in all three phases of their team. So the big challenge for them is to go be who they are. Don't let the pressure of the playoffs or recent history impact you in a negative way. They're a better team than Green Bay. They should win the game, particularly at home.
What was it like when you're coaching and you hear that Jerry Jones has said something, and then the media comes over and wants to ask you about that?
The media love that. They love that idea of he said this, and didn't you say this before, and trying to provide a rift between us. And, that never was a big issue for me, because I knew the conversations that Jerry Jones and I had. Sometimes the perception of things were such that, oh, you're over here, he's over here, you're not on the same page, all of that. We tried to have honest conversations about things we're doing. If you had to undo some things because maybe he was emotional after a game, hey, undid it. But, ultimately, there are some of those landmines that you have to deal with as a coach, particularly in a high-profile environment. It just comes with the dinner.
Yeah, I felt bad for Mike McCarthy the other day when Jerry said, "Hey, his record speaks for itself," and just giving all these plaudits to him, and then at the very end, it was basically, "Well, we'll see how it goes game to game." As far as Mike McCarthy's future, so Jerry almost had the perfect response. Then he had to add, "But we're going to see how it goes game to game." How would you feel if you're Mike McCarthy?
Yeah, Mike's done such a great job there. He's done a great job throughout his career, and they've been one of the better teams in the league the last few years. And, he knows more than anybody that, it's a day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year business. And the bottom line is winning, and there's a lot of expectation in Dallas for them to take the next step and to go win. So, he's done a great job kind of locking in and keeping his team locked in. You just got to kind of move on. It's all part of that job. And he's handled it beautifully.
Have fun on Saturday night there. Is your wife helping you with your wardrobe there on Saturday night?
We both decided we had to start packing early, and I don't know how you pack for a game. This is new territory for me. 0 degrees, calling a game in Kansas City with the window open.
Don't wear gloves when you're on camera. Act tough, okay?
Yeah, don't wear gloves on camera?
Well, just when they go to you in the booth there. I mean, Tirico's going to have gloves on. I know that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But you know what? Don't be afraid to not have the hat on. Now, once the camera's off of you, you can bundle up. But I think, you got to show that you're tough. You're East Coast tough.
Yeah, I don't think hat, right? We can't do a hat.
Nah.
Right?
Well, it depends on how long you're on camera, Coach.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. Don't do earmuffs, okay?
I think quick changes are going to be critical.
Good to talk to you. Safe travels. Thank you.
Thanks. Always good talking to you. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. You too, Coach. Jason Garrett, Football Night in America. And NBC Sports is going to present the Super Wild Card Weekend, the first ever exclusively live-streamed playoff game this Saturday night on Peacock at 8 Eastern. And they're talking about being one of the coldest games on record, certainly in playoff history.